Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to the Juz Summaries, and inshallah in this video we are going through the 26th Juz, alhamdulillah. This Juz comprises of quite a few surahs now, and we're going to see now as the Juz progress that there are more surahs now within each of these Juz. So this Juz, it starts off with Surah Ahqaf and then has three Madini surahs. So Surah Ahqaf was a Makki surah, then three Madini surahs. We have Surah Muhammad, Surah Fath and Surah Hujurat. And then we return back to two Makki surahs, Surah Qaf and Surah Dhariyat. So Surah Ahqaf, it continues what we looked at previously. The previous set of surahs was looking at the importance of revelation and how it is important for the people to whom the messenger comes, that they follow the message, they believe in the message and follow it and embody that message so that they can live successful lives. And so Surah Ahqaf will continue in that same vein. We then have three Madini surahs, the first of them being Surah Muhammad. Now remember, what we understand about Madini surahs, these relate to Islamic laws. Okay, the rulings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings down to the Medinan society. And so Surah Muhammad deals specifically with the laws of jihad and how it is important that the Muslims follow these laws from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Remember, the Muslims are in Medina and the ultimate goal is to return back to Makkah and take over the Kaaba and to destroy this polytheistic beliefs that were taking place around the Kaaba and to restore it to the original Abrahamic faith of monotheism. And so what happens here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this surah speaks specifically about jihad with a strict emphasis on ensuring that people follow these and a condemnation of those people who do not follow these. We must play our part in the greater ummah. This is what this surah is showing us. The next surah is Surah Fath, the opening. And this deals specifically with the events around the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, which took place at the time of the Prophet ﷺ towards the latter part of the Madini period, where the Prophet ﷺ engages in a back and forth with the Makkans and eventually enters into a treaty. But from the face of it, the treaty seems kind of unfair for the Muslims. But then Allah reveals the first verses of this surah, Inna fatahna laka fatham mubina. Indeed, we have bestowed a great clear victory to you, a clear victory to you. And so one of the things we learn from this is that despite the Muslims at the time thinking that this is a real difficult situation for the Muslims, it's an unfair treaty that the Prophet ﷺ has entered into, ultimately there's a great amount of victory in there. Why? Well, if we look at history, we see that there was a period of peace, and that allowed for the Prophet ﷺ and the companions now to engage in da'wah, fearlessly, without any issue, without any worry of engaging in any type of battle. In addition to that, some of the great leaders of Makkah became Muslim. Khalid bin Walid, Amr ibn al-As, Uthman ibn Talha, Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. These were great people who became Muslims during this period. And so this was kind of from the back shot, from the upshot of this Treaty of Hudaybiyah. Then we have Surah Hujurat. This is a short surah of 18 verses, but in this kind of sums up the whole ethic and moral code that Muslims should stand by. And this is very important for us. In this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about obedience to leaders, reconciliation between parties when they enter into a dispute, abstaining from gossip, from slander, from backbiting, from racism, from mockery, negative suspicions. All of these things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about within this surah. And so it's important that we reflect upon this and we embody these characteristics, because that will ultimately lead to our success. Then we now have a shift back to the Makki surahs, and we have Surah Qaf. And Surah Qaf now deals with the topic of the afterlife. Okay, so back to the concept of belief, what we've seen commonly with the Makki surahs. Now this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the concept of the akhirah, with graphic descriptions of the hellfire and the nature and size of the hellfire. We ask Allah for safety and security. And ultimately these verses should be kind of a means of aversion for us from the hellfire. We should be changing ourselves as a result of reflecting from these verses. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will finally complete this juz with Surah Dhariyat, again which continues the theme of the afterlife. Some of the key lessons that we can take from this juz, first and foremost, following the laws. One of the reflections that we take from Surah Muhammad, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us the importance of following the laws that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down. These laws are meant to regulate our life. If there were no laws, then people would do whatever they want to do. But Allah has set these laws down purposefully for us to regulate our life and to organize ourselves and to ensure that we are at the best level obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second reflection that we take from this juz, wisdom in Allah's plan. If we look at the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, from the outset it looked like this was totally unfair upon the Muslims. But like I mentioned, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave many blessings to the Prophet ﷺ and the Ummah of the Prophet ﷺ during this period, during the period of this treaty. And ultimately, the treaty was the cause, or the breaking of the treaty by the Meccans was the ultimate cause for the Prophet ﷺ to engage in an army to now take over Mecca, and eventually he takes over Mecca, the Fath Mecca. The final reflection that we take from this juz, ethics and moral code. One of the things that we learn from Surah Hujurat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about how we can truly have a high level of morality and ethics at every single engagement in our life, with regards to the Prophet ﷺ, with regards to parties that are disputing, with regards to how do we speak to people in front of them, with regards to how we speak to people behind their backs. All of these things are mentioned in this surah. And it's very important that we understand akhlaq is not just to be nice and polite to somebody. Akhlaq is to imbibe good characteristics that come forth in any circumstance. When you are with somebody, when you are not with them, when you are in a group, when you are in a community, when you are in a dispute, when you are in harmony. This is where true akhlaq comes forward. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ came to complete all of these elements of good character. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He beautifies our character. Wa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.